Okay. I call to order this meeting of the Issaquah School Board. Today is Thursday, March 26th, 2026. And at this point, will everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, and before we start public comment, we have a presentation from some of our students.
Thank you. Each spring, graduating seniors nominated by school staff extend a special invitation to our board members for their upcoming June commencement ceremonies. This evening, we are honored to celebrate these outstanding students and witness our district's mission in action. After introducing each student and sharing highlights from their nomination, each student will share a brief reflection of their experience in the ISD or potentially what their post-high school plans are. So first, from the Academy of Community Transition, Mason Shelton. Actually, why don't you stand on this side so everybody can see your wonderful face. It's a pleasure to recognize Mason for the growth and character he has demonstrated during his time in the ACT program. Mason exemplifies what it means to be an engaged and thoughtful learner. He approaches new experiences with genuine curiosity and an openness to trying new strategies, showing a quiet confidence in his ability to grow. He has developed strong self-advocacy skills, learning to communicate his needs, ask meaningful questions, and seek support when it matters most. What truly stands out about Mason is his positive attitude and steady commitment. He brings focus and effort to his work every day and contributes to a supportive environment by working collaboratively with both peers and staff. Mason demonstrates resilience, responsibility, a genuine commitment to learning, qualities that make him truly deserving of this recognition. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Just saying it.
Okay. Take your word.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. From Gibson Eck, I would like to introduce Austin Frisbee. Correct?
Yep.
Austin is a consistent leader across all areas of his life. At school, Austin leads his senior class, mentors underclassmen, and as a long-standing ASB senator, advocates for others and contributes to school culture. Outside of school, he's trusted to train his adult coworkers and demonstrates strong leadership and professionalism at his home remodeling internship. Through his senior capstone project, Austin is extending his leadership into the community by helping to build tiny homes to support individuals experiencing homelessness in Seattle, helping with the nonprofit's long-term goal of contributing to a net zero outcome for those who want to transition off of the streets. He has a clear post-secondary pathway into construction, including plans to attend Green River Community College, ongoing hands-on work, and potential future apprenticeship involvement. Austin?
And yeah, after I go through Green River College for trade school, I have 3 pathways I could go. I could work for my mentor and with JG Handyman and work for him. I could go into a union, and or for my 3rd pathway is working for my uncle's lumber business when he starts it up pretty soon.
Congratulations. Oh, and I'm forgetting these beautiful pictures behind me. So, okay, we have next from Issaquah High School, Megan Chapman. Megan is a remarkable senior whose achievements reflect the very mission of our district, to engage in meaningful learning and grow into thoughtful, capable citizens. Megan has consistently excelled academically while pursuing a challenging course load, embodying a passion for learning and the confidence to thrive in an ever-changing world. Her kindness and authentic support of her classmates strengthen our school community and foster connections that matter. Beyond her academic dedication, Megan is deeply involved in the Evergreen Orchestra, where her commitment and artistry have enriched our arts culture. Megan's character, scholarship, and involvement reflect the values we celebrate at graduation, and we're proud to honor her accomplishments as part of our graduating class.
Like she said, my name is Megan. I plan on studying chemistry at a four-year college, and I've been really inspired by the IHS science department. They've really helped me and have been supportive of my choices. Thank you.
Next, from Liberty High School, we have Marley La Madrid. Marley is an outstanding leader in the Liberty High School community. She currently serves as our ASB president and holds leadership roles as vice president of both Key Club and Asian Culture Club, as well as secretary of the Sports Medicine Club. Marley has spearheaded numerous fundraisers benefiting nonprofit organizations, including Patriots in Pink, a Liberty High School initiative that raises funds and awareness to support families in our community impacted by breast cancer. Marley also organized a school supply drive to support students in need. Marley serves as captain for the LHS girls basketball team. Her dedication to service, leadership, and school spirit has made a meaningful impact at Liberty High School.
Hi, my name is Marley La Madrid, and I've been a part of the Issaquah School District my entire life. And this fall, I plan to study international business management at Loyola Marymount University and eventually study immigration law.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. And from Skyline High School, we have Hannah Uman. Hannah has been an exceptional leader within the Skyline community. As senior class president and vice president of the National Honor Society, she has consistently demonstrated a deep commitment to service and student success. Her achievements extend beyond the classroom. Hannah placed 7th internationally at DECA and served as a varsity witness on Skyline's mock trial team, showcasing both academic excellence and strong advocacy skills. Her leadership has produced tangible results for the school. She's helped raise over $20,000 for class council, coordinated more than 30 events for the class of 2026, and led fundraising to install water bottle filling stations across campus. Hannah also contributed to Skyline's long-term improvements by participating in XQ workshops focused on strengthening curriculum and college readiness. Her record of service, initiative, and impact reflects the very best of Skyline, and she's poised to continue making meaningful contributions in the years ahead.
Hi, I'm Hannah Uman, and I'm planning to study at Cornell University Public Policy. And I just want to continue helping my community and helping especially schools to improve consistently. And being a part of Skyline and the Issaquah School District has really motivated me and inspired me to pursue this path. And good evening, President and members of the board and Superintendent Tao Yik. On behalf of 2026 ISD senior classes and my fellow nominees, it is my honor to invite you to our commencement ceremonies. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing all of you in June. Okay, we will now move on in the agenda to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the board to receive public statements on items not listed on the meeting agenda for possible board action. If you have a point of view for the specific agenda items on tonight's agenda, which is the bond refunding discussion or the monitoring report for results number 3, civic engagement, I'll ask you to hold your comment until that particular agenda item comes up. Public comment is time not intended to raise an issue unique to a particular student, staff member, or administrator. Rather, it is your time to provide your insights on issues more generally and of a wider concern. As a general rule, the board will not respond to public comment. I ask you to begin your comments by clearly stating your name and your attendance area. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. We will be using a timer. The board neither endorses nor censors any opinions expressed during public comment. Please keep your comments civil and respectful and avoid personal attacks on others. We will start public comment with those in the room and then go to those with hands raised on Zoom. So I'm going to start with my sign-up sheet here, and first off is Jay Sternoff.
Good evening. My name is Jay Sternoff, and I am a resident of the city of Issaquah. On March 11th, the ISD staff recognized that the budget challenges stemming from declining enrollment have created unanticipated revenue pressures as presented before this board. The student population is lower now than it was in 2016, when the original high school number 4 bond was passed. Currently, it is not projected to pass the 2016 student count until maybe 2035. That's almost 20 years or a complete generation of Issaquah residents. This was recognized by the board this past year when the elementary school on this property was permanently postponed. Issaquah, Bellevue, and Mercer Island are all fighting for students through open enrollment. Is this how we're going to fill this new high school? With that said, a recent survey revealed that the emergency road on the south side of the proposed high school number 4 property was assumed to be intact and to have a valid easement, even though that easement expired in the 1980s, before the ISD ever even acquired the property. This designated emergency road is not entirely on the Issaquah School District property, as a recent survey shows. As of this morning, we received a notice from the Issaquah School District that they filed a minor amendment pursuant to this survey to attempt to correct these errors. In light of the potential budget issues and the review of the permit application modification, it appears ill-advised for ISD to proceed with this project in these uncertain times. Please halt any activities on the property until all permit applications are approved. Fuel prices alone will create unanticipated expenses for this project, and we humbly ask the board to put all activity on this property on hold with a formal motion until there is a clear path forward to all completed and approved municipal permits. Thank you for your opportunity to speak. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Next is Dave Osman.
Good evening, council members. Dave Osmer, 22433 Southeast Highland Lane. As Dave mentioned, or as Jay mentioned, has been a campaign on your part to recruit out of district students. And for me, that's a little strange at best, and at worst, hypocritical when you also are advertising the fact that the schools are overcrowded. So you either have overcrowding and trying to recruit additional students into the mix. I also find it ironic that the first structures that appeared on the high school number 4 site are porta potties. And I think that's an example of the appropriateness of that site for a high school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else in the room that would like to give public comment? Okay, not seeing any hands. And do we have anybody online? One person online. Okay. Please turn on your camera and introduce yourself and your attendance area, please.
Hi, everyone. Mary Doratus. I'm a 30-year resident of Issaquah and Newcastle. I want to thank Mr. Turney and Ms. Banasek, ISD financial staff, for their March 11 presentation to the school board. ISD's demographers data showing a high enrollment of 20,200 in 2020 and dropping to 15,700 in 10 years shows a 30% decrease. They added that, quote, while levy revenue has increased, expenditures are growing at a faster rate, and that facilities will need to adapt to a lower long-term enrollment baseline, end quote. Related to that, good news is the district's announcement of a new online high school. Pedagogy tells us that education is not a one-size-fits-all, and this is a very inspired option. The declining enrollment with its slower revenue from the state, which you're very well aware of, plus the new online high school, point to the obvious. High school number 4 is not needed. As former Mayor Pauley pointed out to the City Council in 2022, quote, "We should have been able to look at something that was amazing and imaginary and forward-thinking, and instead we got a school from the 1970s." Just within the last few days, as you've heard, construction equipment has shown up on the high school 4 site. The district is going ahead with project number 2501, clearing 77% of the trees, contrary to the city's own Green Issaquah project. Finally, I want to thank everyone who's tried to save the old college buildings and those who testified to the impact on this site, including Washington State Department of Ecology, Trout Unlimited, the Snoqualmie Tribe, Friends of Issaquah Hatchery, and hundreds more, along with the tens of thousands who voted, unfortunately, against the 2 recent bonds. I also want to point out a very special thank you to Dave Osmer, who has been a very inspired leader. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, this will close public comment. Next up on our agenda will be the approval of the consent agenda. We will move, the consent agenda is a meeting management tool whereby the board is able to pass multiple items with one motion. The consent agenda items have been reviewed by the board prior to this meeting. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda for discussion. Do I have a motion?
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
I second.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 And the motion passes. I guess I should say the consent agenda passes. Next up on the agenda is the establishment of the regular agenda. Superintendent, are there any changes to the regular agenda?
There are no changes to the regular agenda.
Thank you very much. And moving along, next on the agenda is a work study recap. Prior to tonight's regular meeting, the board met with ISD administrators to discuss the school board student representative policy. And I'll open it up to my colleagues for any comments on our work study. Director Coyne.
Well, first and foremost, I want to extend my gratitude and thanks to our student reps. I think we continue to have one of the most engaged groups of student reps across the state. We see that when we go to WASDA conferences. That level of engagement is wonderful. So I think that that's very important. I think, it was good for us to continue to talk about, the strength that we see in the program and how, as we continue to move forward, we have student rep interviews coming up. And so we're looking forward to that. So it was good to just have a general conversation around that and talk about, how we prepare for the upcoming interviews. So appreciated the discussion.
What else? Director Mullings.
Yeah. It's always good conversation for us to look at where the program is today, how we've been evolving it over the last couple of years, where we think we've got positive momentum and where there's an opportunity to continue to refine. I think each group of new students that joins that program has new insights and input and a different experience, and it helps continue to shape where we want to go and structure that program. I think it's important to kind of reground in, we've had student representatives to the board for many, many years. And, in recent years, we've really tried to shift toward a program that is about policy making. It's about the policies of the board, the policy of the district, and making sure we are hearing students and how our policies are experienced in real time in their buildings. And so I think we had a conversation that we're still very committed to that, like focus on the policy work and getting a broad set of input from our building students of all kind of interests and grade levels, et cetera. So I think that's positive. I think, as we see changes to how our board meetings work, how the public participates in our board meetings, how the ability to collect data changes, how students participate in that data collection. There's always opportunity for us to continue to refine that program. But again, I think our base understanding is we're going to stay really focused on what's the policy work and how's that showing up in the building. And I think it's a good conversation for us to have as a group as we prepare to interview the next wave. Again, applications are open to apply to be a student representative to the school board. And we've seen those applications grow every year. So I'm going to continue to plug those applications as well. April 10th is when those application deadlines close. So let's see more interested young people.
Good plug. I like it. Anyone else? Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you very much. Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Superintendent, you have some reflections.
It's always great to be able to prepare for this next cycle of welcoming the next group of student representative leaders. And I know the year's not over yet, so we still have some runway to go for the remaining part of this year to currently engage with our student reps as they are currently seated. And it's always helpful to be part of the discussion as we play a role in helping to support the student reps.
Great. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is another recap, which is about the Digital Promise League of Innovative Schools convening that was here in Issaquah, well, in other parts of the Puget Sound area. And I will turn it over to the superintendent to give us your thoughts.
Great, thank you. There's a short presentation also with some photos capturing the event last week. And last week was the time that we co-hosted Digital Promise's League of Innovative Schools Spring Convening with the Kent School District. And the League of Innovative Schools is really about connecting and rallying forward-thinking districts across this country and the leaders and their team members who work in those school districts. And it's an opportunity for us to be able to actually attend. As hosts, we also got to attend, and many of our staff attended also as well as an opportunity. Our primary role as co-host was to welcome a portion of the 350 plus attendees to our schools for school visits. So that was on day 2, which was on Tuesday. And so we hosted nearly 180 people in our school district for 4 learning tracks. We started with a welcome, convening everyone at one time at Gibson Eck, and I had a chance to help open up and also then ensure that we had a strong team in place, and want to just recognize Julia Bamba for being our main liaison and for organizing our team, helping prepare across the district for these 4 different tracks and visits, and really holding that space, which was particularly poignant since she also founded Gibson Eck as the founding principal. And President Taylor gave an inspiring welcome to help set the tone, as you can see from the right-hand photo as well. And then from there, we went into 4 different tracks. So the first track was about real-world readiness, and there was various visits to building off of Gibson Eck, onto Liberty, and then also Issaquah High. This was an opportunity at Issaquah Middle. And this was an opportunity to also hear about some areas such as Career Kickstart, which you all have heard about before. And actually our students co-hosted all these different tables where they all talked about their experience at Career Kickstart, and the adults were fascinated and just could not stop trying to glean the insight about how might they do that in their own districts to help young people have really strong career-connected learning experiences. Track 2 was about empowering students. This was very much about student voice. Director Mullings participated for part of this track as well to talk about lots of different opportunities where we have both student representative voice, but also other spaces where young people are shining. I know that there was a very powerful opportunity for Skyline to also showcase their incredible orchestra as well. So that was pretty amazing. Pine Lake Middle School equity team members of the school student body also led there as well. Track 3 was about teacher leadership. There was a conversation here about the use of AI in our schools and how we were supporting our teachers to be able to do that, as well as really focus on our Ignite program, which fosters the role of both UDL and inclusionary practices across our district. So where you see a range of our schools represented here. And then track 4 was also focused on innovative school design. And we were able to visit, build off of our time at Gibson Eck, and head down to Liberty and Maywood. And at Maywood, we looked and talked to students who are participating in the micro school, and at Liberty to see some of the culinary arts, hear about the new high school design itself and the pathways that are being entertained that are top interest for our community and our students, as well as to see and actually partake in some of the culinary delights from El Cafe and the culinary program there. So that was really what the expanse of our time. And then day 3, we had an opportunity to be able to share in our learning and have debrief sessions with the attendees at the hotel conference site, as well as present some of our own work to our colleagues in mini sessions as well. So that was a great opportunity here. And I will say that well, there's actually many things that came out of this, but I'll share, I guess, my top 2 highlights. One is that it was resoundingly clear that participants from the school visits and also the ones that heard about our work from their peers about their day visiting Issaquah schools, as well as in some of the sessions that we were leading on day 3, were really amazed at the incredible way our students led the entire time. They hosted, they spoke, they reflected on their experiences. So that was a very affirming set of reflections to hear back from our peers across the country. And they also were very impressed by the cohesion and alignment across our system, from our district goals, which are our results as part of the coherent governance policy model, all the way through to the work that we're doing every day to help our students to feel a sense of belonging and to aspire to be their best selves and to find their passion and purpose. So that was really affirming. And we set up the conversation by saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're just showing you what we do. Our kids are here to talk to you about what they do and tell you the great things and whatever else is on their mind and whatever feedback they have. And so we just opened ourselves up, and that was incredibly affirming. And just the kinds of questions that people ask also gave us a lot to think about, how we might learn and grow. When you invite in different perspectives to your work, you always can learn something. And so it was a big effort, a huge amount of work. So I will say that out loud to all of our track leads, our entire cabinet, and the many teachers and students that were participating. It was a huge work. It was an all hands on deck day for all of us. We had team members also supporting buses and helping to serve as mini tour guides, not mini tour, but giving mini tours across the district as they were moving from location to location. And our El Cafe provided all the desserts at the 2 lunch sites, and that was also great to see our students shining by having amazing, delightful treats. So that was that, and Director Coyne was also on site at the opening and was able to participate in one of the tracks. So I just want to invite board members who attended and participated to feel free to share their reflections as well.
Director Coyne, yes, thank you.
You looked at me, so I was like, I better go. I know. I'll just share maybe 2 quick reflections. One, I was really proud that day to be a parent of a student in the Issaquah School District, to be a homeowner in the district. I continue to believe that our schools are some of our greatest assets here in the Issaquah School District and in this community. And I just was very proud in terms of the innovation that we're seeing in our schools, and how many people from across the country kept coming up saying, Issaquah has been on our radar for quite some time, and we're glad to be here. So it was neat to hear that. And then just lastly, micro schools. I was in the 4th track there. I had an opportunity to go to Maywood and listen to students talking about their experience with micro schools. If you don't know what those are, and I know we've discussed them during board meetings, learn more about them. They're pretty incredible, and we're expanding them out. They're currently just at 2 middle schools, Pine Lake and Maywood. We're expanding them out to all middle schools next year. It's very exciting. Continue to hear very, very positive feedback from parents whose students are in those programs. And it was neat to hear directly from the students that day too. So those are my thoughts.
Director Mullings.
It was fun. I went to Skyline and participated in a couple of sessions around student voice. So we had 2 of our student representatives along with me. So we had Nilla at her homeschool at Skyline, and then Krish, who was there. I would say I was really proud just from like watching the growth of our student reps. Like, it's really impressive to watch them, how they've really grown into their own voices and what they think about their schools and how they get to participate in the board this process. So that was amazingly cool to watch. I think it was very interesting to have, all these people ask us questions about how student voice works and how that's incorporated, and actually want a little dirt. Like, well, what did you guys disagree about? What did the kids tell you what are the kids saying that the adults aren't listening to? So I thought that was funny. I think, just in general, one of the things that I know since my time on the board has been really important is Issaquah is only going to continue to be a leading school district by inviting in more people to the conversation, by learning from other places in the country, by learning from other districts, by inviting people into what we do. And so I think this is just a really good example of that, of how we tap into the greater knowledge set of all those who are in education. Sure, yes, we're sharing about what's amazing and awesome about us, but it's really a wonderful opportunity for this district to continue to connect outside of our boundaries and bring back those good learnings. And so for me, it's just a really, really critical demonstration of us being connected and staying connected beyond our district borders. And so it's just very gratifying, I guess, in the role I have as a school board director to know that we're going where the information is and not putting our heads in the sand and saying, well, Issaquah's fine the way it is. So I thought it was a great day.
Yeah, and I'll pick up actually right on that same point, Director Mullins, is that it was just incredibly inspiring to have all of these educational leaders here in our district collaborating and talking about innovation in education. I had the opportunity to have lunch with a superintendent from Kentucky, another superintendent from Connecticut, and just to hear their perspectives on education was really, really valuable. And of course, just the great chance to showcase all the great work we're doing here in the district about preparing our students for a rapidly evolving world. So that was very inspiring. But the last point I want to make is just how incredibly proud I was of our students. I had an opportunity to go to the salmon hatchery with 2 Gibson X students that had interned at the hatchery with a group of the attendees. And those students were just incredibly eloquent, very open about sharing their experiences and how the internship had influenced their own choices that they're making in the direction that they want to go in their life, and how kind of really foundational an experience it was for them. So just couldn't be prouder as to how well our students represented our district. So overall, I thought it was a fantastic event. Any other comments? Okay, we will move along then. Next on the agenda is works in progress. This is a standing opportunity for the superintendent to provide a brief status report on various projects and activities in the district. I'll turn it over to you.
My first 2 comments are really about just sort of the work that's happening this moment in time. Our strategic plan update efforts continue, and we're gathering input still. So we've now been to about 20 learning sites across the district. Our commitment is to get to all of our learning sites and our operational sites. And over 300 staff members have participated so far. We're still kind of getting those numbers rolling in, but these are times that sometimes it's actually during a staff meeting, which does boost attendance, but sometimes it's also optional time set aside for staff members to come in. Either way, we are sharing the question prompts as well as the current direction with all the staff at all of our sites, so they have an opportunity to also give feedback via a reflection survey after the fact. So everyone still has an opportunity to participate if they did not attend a session in person to provide input directly. And those are designed very much to generate conversation. So about 20% of that time is talking between staff members, reflecting, and then giving share outs in the whole group. And there's only about 10 minutes of setup time, or 10 minutes of setup time out of a 30-minute window. And this is also now the season of lots of different transitions. We are constantly trying to align our work to student needs and system supports for schools. I think the one thing we should never assume is that things remain static. We have to continue to make sure that we are organizing ourselves around the most important priorities of the district, as well as ensuring that the instructional core, which is the day-to-day teaching and learning that happens in a classroom, and also outside the classroom, stays intact and continues to serve students very well. Two things I do want to highlight. Our district hosted its annual Roots Student Summit this week. It was held at Gibson Neck School, and this brought students together from across all of our high schools for a day centered on identity, belonging, leadership, and student voice. The summit was designed to create a dedicated space for students, particularly those from historically marginalized backgrounds, to connect with one another, reflect on their experiences, and engage in meaningful conversations about their futures. Throughout the day, students participated in interactive workshops, heard from inspiring keynote speakers, and engaged with a panel of local professionals representing a wide range of identities and career pathways. A highlight of the summit was a student and professional panel where participants shared personal stories of resilience, identity, and leadership. Students were highly engaged, asking thoughtful questions, making connections to their own experiences, and seeing themselves reflected in the journey of the speakers. And student feedback remains strong in terms of the impact on them individually. And many students shared that they felt seen, affirmed, and inspired, noting the summit created a very rare opportunity to build community across schools and celebrate their identities in a meaningful way. So this is another great example of the Root Student Summit, where we see our district and our staff really fostering student belonging, elevating student voice, and preparing students to lead with confidence in their communities and beyond. I want to thank the Issaquah Schools Foundation and their donors for generous financial support of this event, and to Elena Sividasan, Sharon Roy, and Joanna Moore for their leadership. And there's many more staff members and volunteers that joined that team, but they played a primary role in both launching this event and continuing it to achieve continued impact for our students. I also want to share a continued theme around some of the ways we're continuing to increase options that reflect our student backgrounds on the operations side. So we do have, as I've shared before, several items that are new to our menus this year. I've talked a lot about the Indian doll that was mentioned previously in a board meeting, but I'm going to read an email actually that came from a parent. So it's very rare to get emails that talk about the food offerings on our menus. And so I thought it was worthy of just sharing and reading directly. So, quote, "I'd like to mention the awesome changes with lunches at Pacific Cascade Middle School recently. My daughter in 8th grade says that there have been a number of very tasty and delicious lunch options recently, including chicken gyoza soup." That was Tuesday of this week. "Tastes good. It tastes good, contains vegetables, and is even a little spicy. There are also grab and go sandwiches, and the chicken wraps taste very fresh. There's a chicken Thai curry that was on the menu a few weeks ago that was very flavorful, and the mashed potatoes are good too. Thanks for all the improvements. Hope you can roll these out to all the schools, including elementary schools. We did have them on the high school menu as well. And then thank you from this parent." I had an opportunity to visit Issaquah Middle School and check out the chicken gyoza soup. And so I can certainly attest to the amazing flavor, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. So those are some things that are happening in our district, and I just like to share some of the fun stories so people can see what's happening every single day, both from the operational side of our work as well as the programmatic and student support side.
Great. I would like to try the chicken gyoza soup. Yes, very, very good. Oh, rats. Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Appreciate that. Next up on the agenda is bond refunding. The administration will provide details on the bond refunding process. The board had a first read of 3 resolutions at the March 11th, 2026 regular board meeting. We will hear public comment on this topic, and I will let you know when we're going to do that. But first, I believe I need 3 motions.
I was going to ask, do you want to do all 3?
Yeah, let's just do all 3.
Okay. Okay, so I move the board adopt resolution number 1261, adopting a system of registration of bonds and obligations of the district.
I second.
Keep going.
Yes.
Second one is I move the board adopt resolution number 1262, authorizing the district to request a certificate of eligibility from the state treasurer pursuant to chapter 39.98 RCW and the rules adopted thereunder by the State Finance Committee for participation in the State School Bond Guarantee Program.
I second.
Bigger font. And the third one, I move the board adopt resolution number 1263, providing for the issuance and sale of refunding bonds in the aggregate principal amount not to exceed $252 million and delegating to the superintendent and/or chief of finance and operations of the district the authority to determine the structure of the bonds, approve the interest rates, maturity dates, and principal maturities of the bonds.
I second.
Thank you. Okay, I think we will have a presentation now by the superintendent, ISD administrators, and our guests.
Just, turn it right over to Mariah Banasic.
Thank you. Good evening, board and community. So we had a financing plan presentation by Piper Sandler, Trevor Carlson, as well as Lee Marquisio from Foster Garvey. They're here tonight as well. So so you have the resolutions in front of you now. At that past meeting was for discussion, and for tonight is for potential adoption. And then we also have an updated financial plan presentation. So during our part of our budget development process, we look at our debt service fund, and we have debt service reserves that we can go ahead and pay additional funds to these bonds. So this would generate additional savings for the taxpayers. This would require a budget extension. So we would have a budget hearing at the May 7th board meeting, as well as a notice going out in April to the community as well. So with that, I'm going to turn over to Trevor Carlson from Piper Sandler to discuss the updated financial plan. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mariah. I appreciate the opportunity. President Taylor, members of the board, President Tauyik, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. The presentation that is in front of you looks very similar to the one that we shared a couple weeks ago, but based upon Mariah's introduction, I wanted to give you some description as far as what those mechanics look like, as far as the debt service fund reserves and how they can be applied to maximize taxpayer savings. And I always appreciate the tech team. Thank you so much. You guys are the best. And please ask me questions as you see fit, or save them to the end, however you'd like to proceed. This slide looks very, very similar, except for the last set of bullet points towards the bottom of that slide. So the release of these strategic debt service fund reserves will benefit the ISD community in numerous ways. Number one, this reduces the total debt that will be on the books. It reduces that total principal amount. So this is a very efficient way to bring those debt service fund reserves back to the community. Avoids interest costs. So the amount that we utilize out of debt service applied to this transaction directly reduces the borrowing. So dollar for dollar, if round number, if we apply $10 million from the debt service fund, that's $10 million we do not need to borrow during the bond refunding process. And lowers tax burden. That's the main goal. What this does is reduces the debt service fund levy going forward, providing direct, tangible relief to the district's taxpayers. So that is the why behind this adjustment. The next few slides, again, are the summary. These are the exact same as what I presented a couple weeks ago. The opportunity set with the 2015 bonds, the 16 bonds, and recall the 2017 bonds, since the optional redemption date is later in this calendar year on December 1st. We'll come back to you this autumn with a very similar presentation with updated numbers to see if we will be able to execute on a refinancing or refunding at that point in time. Interest rates, as you may or may not, depending on your how strong your stomach is. If you look at your 401k or your retirement or your stock accounts, the volatility in the marketplace has been significant. We've seen interest rates tick up again this week. We were able to get a transaction in for a large metro school district on Tuesday morning. So again, the market is working, it's efficient, We just have to be nimble on how we structure and discuss these opportunities with potential buyers. But we're seeing a little bit elevated borrowing levels the last couple weeks. If you may recall, I guess this doesn't work on the screen because it's a TV. The second number from the bottom, the net present value savings as of now compared to a couple weeks ago, because interest rates have increased about 0.15, 0.2%, so 15 to 20 basis points. That net present value savings is a little lower than it was, by the tune of about $1 million. So the interest rate environment is dynamic. Hopefully we receive some new news that's better news as we march forward in time and we're able to grab potentially higher savings. But again, we're monitoring this and we cannot move if we're outside of the parameters of the delegation resolution. Similar slide from last time, the 2017s are much more efficient. That net present value savings as of now, again, we cannot execute until this autumn, is very robust, and the savings projected there using today's interest rates are about $7.5 million. So this was the slide from a few weeks ago, the annual savings that we anticipated without the debt service fund reserve drawdown that Mariah discussed to kick off this conversation. So just kind of eyeball the annual savings, it's about $1 million. Net present value at that point in time is about 5.7 million versus the nominal in the bottom of the green box there of almost 7 million. Utilizing that debt service fund reserve brings those savings to about 2.5 to 3 million, depending on which calendar year and how the previous bonds were structured. So a savings on a nominal basis, about 2.5 times greater, right? I'm just going to bounce back 7 million to about 17 million. So that's utilizing funds on hand. If you don't mind, I'm just going to walk over because that's really, I'll go back to the mic in a second. Number at the very bottom here, almost very bottom, is at this point in time our best guess. So almost $11 million of debt service fund reserves applied to this. Again, it's a very efficient way for us to bring those taxpayer savings home as soon as possible. So that's really the kind of the mechanics and how this benefits taxpayers. Again, brings those annual savings to bear very soon. And last but not least, again, based upon Mariah's comments regarding the notice, the public hearing, and the board consideration for the debt service fund budget extension, I've adjusted the schedule. So that's there on May 7th, kind of at the middle bottom portion of the timeline there. Bond sale, we're anticipating on May 27th, just to give us some time to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row and to accommodate your consideration for that debt service fund budget extension. So those are the adjustments from a couple weeks ago, but we're still on track. We're still pushing forward. We have disclosure documentation that's coming together. Mariah and her team has been great to help me put together a presentation so we can have conversations with Standard & Poor's and Moody's. And so we're moving forward. Happy to take any questions. We have Lee Marquisio here too, your lawyer. If you have any detailed questions regarding the verbiage in those three different resolutions.
Any questions? Good, Director Gallagher.
So when I compare on page 8 of your document versus page 9,
Oops.
can you go over the second column for why there are different numbers for prior debt service? When the only thing that you described would be different was with or without debt service fund drawdown. So why are the starting amounts different in the 2 pages?
In 2020, bear with me one second. The differential is we have now moved, we can't close prior to the June 1st payment. So we're missing that first interest payment. So this calendar year's debt service is different, and we're utilizing a different debt service fund contribution in that first line there to minimize savings. What I'm trying to do in the first year is have zero savings. You've already set your levy. There's no reason, if we put savings, taxpayer savings into this calendar year, then we're building debt service fund reserves again. That's the only differential. We've moved past a June 1 interest payment between page 8 and page 9.
And so if we didn't do that, what would our debt service fund be?
It would grow to the tune of about $4 million on page 9. There's on the top line, there's a negative 4.8 million.
So I mean, that'd be the total amount, not a just net. That
would be a net addition.
Net addition. So then what would the total be? That's what I'm trying to.
That would be in your debt service fund at which point in time?
For the draw at the moment in time, so 6/17.
I may have that piece of paper. I can run over and grab it from the desk behind me. Yes, that is it. Thank you. It's tiny print. Before the June 1st payment, you'll have about 49 million in the debt service fund. There's a payment of 12.2 million on existing debt on June 1st.
Yeah, of that 49 million, how much of that is available to do the debt service fund drawdown?
About almost 11 million.
Almost 11 million.
Yeah.
And so if we go forward and approve these resolutions, but then decided not to approve the hearing, how would that impact the potential bond?
We
sale?
would be back to, we could still move forward. We would be back to page 8.
Okay, so they aren't connected in that you can't do one without the other, just the difference is the far right-hand column.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes. Sorry if I wasn't following at the beginning, but I think we got there. Okay.
Director Coyne?
Trevor, thank you for the presentation. I want to just make sure the community understands. I know we had this similar conversation a couple of weeks ago around the timing of this, because there could be folks listening in, scratching their heads saying, well, why didn't you act sooner? We knew we were in a volatile market. Can you just reiterate, I know it was in here, but just explain the timing in terms of the bond refunding?
Yeah,
for
no,
folks?
great question. Tax law is driving, in general, the ability for us to move forward. What tax law says right now is you can utilize tax exempt bonds to refinance similar tax exempt bonds within 90 days of the optional redemption date. So the optional redemption date on the 2015 bonds was June 1st of 25, June 1st of 2026. The earliest we could have gotten this process started and executed would have been, let's just say, March of this year, 90 days ahead of June 1st. Without Excel, I can't do the day count in my head, but March 1st-ish.
Yep.
So that is the major driver. And so we are working with many school districts right now, and we are looking to execute on refinancings this first kind of portion of the year through the summer on bonds that look just like this. So tax law is the main driver. Hence why we cannot tackle the 2017 bonds. The earliest we could close, round number, Labor Day. December 1st, back it up, Labor Day-ish would be the earliest we could close. So hence why we'll be coming back to you sometime this autumn to move forward. And again, none of us have a crystal ball. We didn't see the turmoil that started a few weeks ago impacting the markets the way it has. I could see maybe by the time we're looking to market the bonds in late May, this could be over. The headlines could be died down and we could be in a better spot. So, right, it's one of those opportunities. And I'll say this, very analogous to refinancing your house. When's the right time? If you knew when the right time was, you would execute on the right time. We're trying to make educated guesses based upon historical market perspectives, but then again, locking in savings that are significant. So if interest rates do decrease after you've actually locked them in, you can still feel good about, hey, we had a certain threshold, we achieved our threshold, we locked in savings, who knows where the market could have gone, and we're going to move on with our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to have that same discussion in your own internal mind when you're refinancing your house, right? What's that monthly savings mean to me? And is it significant enough for me to do the work and pay the points and all the things?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Well, and I think as this is showing too, we have future opportunity with future set of bonds too.
Yeah,
So it's not a one and yeah.
This opportunity is much more robust.
Yeah.
You know, the opportunity that is in front of you right now, if you decide to approve those resolutions, is a minor optimization, if you will. The 2017s are much more robust, just based upon the nature of what was structured at that point in time.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, great question.
Director Mullings.
So following up on that question, that was really, when do we open the window? Right? When does the window start? I guess my question is, when does the window end? Is there a period of time in which we can no longer take this action? Like if the interest rates stay in a position that we can't achieve the benefit we're hoping for, does that close at some point, or is it open? It stays open until you can.
There is an expiration date on the delegation resolution, and Lee, is it December? December of this year? I am 99% sure, but he has the copies. December 31st of this calendar year.
So if we were to approve it and the window opens, we can't, because of volatility, we cannot achieve these savings that we're targeting here, and we get past that December date, is the opportunity completely off the table?
No,
Or
no,
is there
it's
another
not
window?
completely off the table. We would need to come back to you
For
with a
another-
refresh
Okay,
of this conversation and refresh of the documents that are in front of you for consideration.
got it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, wonderful question.
Any other questions at this point? No. Okay. Is there any public comment in the room or online? No. Okay. Not hearing any? Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Any other board comments? Other outside of questions, comments in general? Okay, not hearing any. Superintendent, you have anything? No? Okay. Well then, I think we have motions on the floor. I'm going to take them in order. We have a motion to accept resolution 1261. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Resolution carries. We have a motion to accept resolution 1262. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries as well. And then lastly, we have a motion to accept resolution 1263. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Very well. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Next up on the agenda is a 2026-2027 budget update. And we will turn it over to Mr. Turney.
Thank you. Not everyone finds this stuff exciting, but whenever we can save money for taxpayers and lower our debt burden, it's always a good thing. So that transitions us right into some other exciting stuff. So 26-27 budget, we have a brief update for you today. Obviously, this is an important point in time. We do our best and we are pretty precise when we come to our year-over-year enrollment projections within around 1% of the mark. However, as you know, there's some things that make budgeting pretty tight. and a challenge. So we're here to share some things that we've learned from the legislature. We do thank you for laying out your budget development guidelines for us and having kind of a longer window. So as a district, we're considering the multi-year impacts of these things as we go along. And we will need to be a little bit more conservative given the picture. So tonight, we're going to give you some information. Mariah's going to walk you through some of the legislative updates. But first, I'm going to just mention there's a link. If you have access to this, there's a link to a page set up by WASA and the ESDs that really updates and expands on the funding gap information, right? So all the Washington school districts all have similar funding gaps with special education and MSOCs and transportation and really substitutes in that bucket as well. So anyone who has a chance should take a look at this site. They're going to be updating it more frequently, and so you can link to any district, including ours, and see kind of up to date what those gaps look like. So just wanted to call that out as being an important part, and it gives visibility to those gaps and really the broken system that we're operating under. So I'll hand it over to Mariah.
Thank you, Martin. So we'll start with the wins from the 2026 legislation session. So the retail sales tax on services, school districts, ESDs are exempt, and this was estimated about $1.4 million in extra additional costs for our district. This does help with some cost increase, but as an example, our insurance is going up by $1.2 million next year. So that's just one cost in terms of operating costs, just to show, how we'll take it though. $1.4 million, we'll definitely take it. So also a good thing for the state school construction funding. So they approve front funding authority. And this is for state assisted projects, and this helps those projects move along and be efficient, so that the districts can receive funding rather than waiting for reimbursement to continue on that project. So for the legislation session, it was constrained for school districts, as mentioned at the prior board meeting. School district funding went down from 6 years ago, 52% of the state budget. Now it's down to 43. And so we also saw reductions in different areas in regards to school districts. So one that had a significant impact is transition to kindergarten. We have 5 classrooms for our TK, and we currently receive $1 million. And they are going to reduce that amount overall as a state by 35% in serving 2,000 fewer students. There is no cap on how much a single district can lose. So not every district is losing 35%. There's going to be a application process this spring. They're going to look at existing programs and looking at priority students, as well as schools in extreme childcare access deserts as well. And so as a district, part of our budget development process, we looked at this potential and decided to continue our TK programs in 26-27 in full. And so we will see how we make out, and is there any reductions to our school district in this area. So we'll continue to look at this, and after this cycle, we'll evaluate it again. Another one was school bus depreciation. So they extended depreciation. You get reimbursement for depreciation on buses to buy new buses. So they extended that by 2 years. And so the impact of that, so they did that to small buses as well as large buses. And so that makes future costs of replacing buses just, when we buy a house or we buy a car, things go up in 2 years. So when we do buy those buses, the cost will increase, as well as potential for repairing those buses throughout that time. So we'll continue to monitor on the direct impact of that. And then lastly, running start. So they reduced the cap. So we receive up to 1.4 FTE of funding for students who want heavier running start participation in high school. And so they reduced how much you can receive as a district down to 1.3. And so what could happen from this is students might not take as much running start. They might potentially increase their time at the schools, adding to capacity pressures at our high schools. And then we'll also be evaluating, the impact of this as well over time. So right now we are in full budget development mode. And so HR is currently meeting with the buildings on their staffing. We're looking at and refining our enrollment projections. We also are staffing to enrollment with adjustments primarily through attrition, minimizing the need for a formal reduction force. We're continuing to have budget meetings and assess our programs, our outcomes, services, looking at efficiencies anywhere we can as well to help with those rising operating costs. We're continuing to develop our multi-year financial projections, and we also have a FAC team meeting. So our financial analysis core team meeting is happening tomorrow as well, and we'll also dig into our budget process so far. And we'll have time for questions and space and feedback. So we're really looking forward to that as well, and we'll continue to provide updates to the board and the community. Thank you.
I do want to emphasize that we are so grateful to our community for supporting our local levies that were on the ballot in February. And we did not actually go to full authority on those levies. I also want to be clear about that as well, because we're in a stage where we are leveraging the dollars that we have. Those levies did help us stabilize, but they do not address the rising cost and where we see parts of our system that might have some declines that we have been projecting. We have been projecting those declines. And so when you see the word staffing to enrollment, it's not just our classroom teachers. All parts of our district have to adjust. When the board was coming out of COVID, there were a series of significant reductions, and that was very much that sort of meeting that moment in time. But the new normal for all school districts, including Issaquah, is to continue to think about expense management. So the method that we were applying of really thinking about start, stop, continue, because multiple things can be true. You can be starting new things. You can be investing in things so that they can grow in their promise and impact for young people, but you also have to stop things. And so we don't live in the world that many districts did, including Issaquah did, 10 plus years ago, where it was high revenue, and some of the revenue models at the state level were able to work in that kind of environment. The environment has changed. It's much more complex. We also have more requirements upon us to deliver on high quality learning opportunities for young people as well. So we are balancing just a very different set of variables now than we were 10 years ago. And we just want to be very clear-eyed and very clear with our community that, we're doing our very best. And we're going to make it work and continue to be sharing information and be intentional and thoughtful about all of that. So I just want to reiterate some additional content and context here.
Dr. Gallinger.
I appreciate the budget update. I would say as you move forward and especially get to building it, I would really like to see some comparative data on a percentage basis rather than, or FTE, whichever thing makes the most sense for building supports and central office supports. The community has asked questions about, yes, as we strategically staff to our student enrollment, that as our certificate staff numbers decline, that our administrative staff follows. So I would like to see what the percentage was, let's say in a couple snapshots before, maybe 2018, 2021 or two, whatever one, choose a couple makes sense. Like one immediately post-COVID before we had the rapid decline in student population, one pre-COVID, and then one what you forecast for the next year. So we are mindful of that start-stop part, because I think that is something that we, if we don't keep our eyes on it, then we'll not look at it. At least I won't. So if you would help me visualize that on a percentage basis, that would really help me.
Yes.
Director Anderson.
First, thank you for this report. I think it's really important that we continue to put this information out, not only for the board's information, but for the community. As we hear these numbers, 19.4 million underfunded for our state or for our district alone underscores that we're not facing just a budget issue, but a systemic state level underfunding problem. And I think it's important our community understands this context. I know that there's other districts that are taking some actions directly, and I think that that's conversation for us to potentially have. Because I think communication to our legislators isn't enough to get this problem fixed. While sales tax exemption and construction funding flexibility are meaningful wins long-term, they don't provide immediate operational relief. So we should be clear on what helps now versus what will help us later. I had the pleasure to visit a TTK or Transition to Kindergarten class last week, and that program is amazing. With the potential 1 million reduction for TTK, I just want to understand if there's options for sustaining the program and what scenarios we're preparing for if state prioritization shifts again. It seems like with the underfunding now, we can still continue the way that we are, but is there any concern with future support?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's concern about going forward. One of the key points is we're waiting for, I believe, OSPI, the ball's in their court to give us direction on what's going to look like. And so once we have that first bit of information on what the rules are going to look like, how they're going to divvy out the funds, then we can kind of go into the planning phase of how are we going to address this going forward. So we're waiting for that first set of information, that data, so that we can react to.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I will say a few words because I cannot pass up an opportunity to get on my soapbox. It's just really incredibly disappointing legislative session. Very, very few wins, many, many losses. I think you said it, we have a broken funding system, and I just hope that sinks in with our community that we're now facing nearly $1 billion in underfunding for basic education in this state, which is just incredible to me when you look at the number that we are, as a state, 40th in the country in percentage of GDP that we spend on education. And you look at the strength of this economy nationwide, it is very hard to reconcile those two facts. And spending in this state is at an all-time high. So I really hope that we can work with our legislators to try to reset priorities moving forward. And in particular to me, I really bemoan the loss of funding for the Transition to Kindergarten program, which is just demonstrably successful. We see those kids going through that program that are more successful when they get into kindergarten and more successful throughout their academic careers, and yet we're still not going to fund those kind of opportunities. It's just mind-boggling to me. So that, again, like I said, me on my soapbox, thank you for all the hard work on the budget. Certainly appreciate it. And they're not making it easy on you folks. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Oh, one last thing I want to say also about the transition to funding. It's a point that Director Anderson was making. This is another example of the pressure we are putting on our levy dollars. We cannot just continue to cut at the state level and expect our local property owners to pick up the slack. At some point, that is going to break as well. So that's it. That's what I had to say. Anything else? Director Bowings.
It's funny how everybody has their soapbox. I think for me, what's important, one, thank you. You guys do an amazing job of taking care of an incredibly complex financial environment with all the moving pieces. I think it's also important, and not that I'm getting into it, but to know that the way funding works in this state, money goes into different buckets for different reasons. So I think sometimes people will hear there's pressure in parts of our budget and assume that that means other parts of the budget must also be in pressure, right? So there's categories that don't cross each other. There's funding sources that have to be spent for their purposes. And two things can always be true, which is that we see pressure in operating costs at the same time while we have funding to do other things like build buildings. And so I just raise that up, that it's a very complex financial environment, and that it can be very hard for people to understand that these are pockets that don't cross each other, and that they all do work in different and independent ways, and that the job you're doing is maximizing multiple categories, but in their purposeful spot. And so I guess I just say that because I will often hear or see this hand waving, well, you're saying there's pressure on one side, but yet you're doing something else. Like, yes, that's actually how it works here in the great state of Washington, which is things go into different buckets for different purposes and must be used that way. So I don't know if there's an easy way for us to better explain that, but it is a very difficult part about when we talk about budget, even though your guide to the budget is beautiful and more people should read it. But it's something I think we kind of have to keep putting in context for people, that we have to move forward different missions at the same time with different constraints.
Yeah, it's a great observation. In fact, I think I'm going to use that as we transition to our next presentation. So maybe I'll open with kind of making that point for you.
No comments? Okay, very good. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And we will move now, as you alluded to, our next subject, which is a capital projects update. And I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Turney and Mr. Mullins.
Yes, thank you. Again, Martin Turney, Chief Finance Operations, is Tom Mullins, our Director of Capital Projects. And again, so the transition, this is excellent that you brought this up, because this is one of those special buckets, right? So we are going to be talking about our capital projects fund today. And even within the capital projects fund, we have different delineations and buckets of money that have to be used for those purposes. So today we're mostly going to be talking about the critical repairs and some other projects, but things like the technology levy, they have their own bucket and they have to be used for those specific purposes. So this capital projects has its own fund aside from our general operating fund. So that's where we talk about it specifically. Today we're going to go over a preview of the 2026 recently approved critical repairs levy projects, and then give you some updates on some of the other things, 2022 levies, grants, new high school, and the upcoming next meeting of our oversight committee. But first, with the 2026, so interesting, we call it the 2026 levy, critical repairs levy, but we don't start collecting the money until 2027, right? So that's something to keep in mind. So as a district, we're very thankful that voters said yes to these projects so we can get important things done. Some of them are including roofs, which we're coming off a winter where we know we have some things that are happening in these buildings, and we want to be able to take care of those. So what's great about the fact that we passed the levy is we can make some long-term solutions, full replacements of roofs in some cases. So right now what we're doing is we're prioritizing those things that should happen right away. And unfortunately, because these are dedicated, funding sources, we need to wait until we have the funds and we can get started on them as early as possible. So I will give a quick preview because we know there are a couple of big ones that need to happen right away. First are the vestibules at Liberty Skyline, Issaquah High. But the very next one simultaneously will be the full roof replacement at Maple Hills Elementary. Yeah. So we know we've been out, in fact, this week, making sure we're patching what needs to be patched. We know people are living in circumstances that are not ideal, and we want to correct that as early and as quickly as possible. So thank you to the voters for giving us the opportunity to address that, and we'll be taking that up right away in 2027. So, but the other point is we're working through when we're going to schedule the other projects, what priority level they're going to be in, and which one should go first as we work through the 4-year cycle. And so we will have that list. We will be showing it to you, the oversight committee, and the public, so we can be held accountable on progress we're making toward those projects. So with that said, I'll let Tom walk you through the rest.
Good evening, everyone. So 22 levy project status. Work related to the 22 levy continues, and reminder that's going to help cover the critical repairs needs between now and when the 2027 or 2026 levy kicks in early 27. Currently roof repairs at various schools, including several Discovery, Endeavor, Cougar Ridge, Sunny Hills, Issaquah Valley, Sunset Elementary School, Maywood. And and we've added Maple Hills in there as one of those that we're continuing to work on also. Some grant efforts, we've completed the energy efficiency grant at Issaquah High. I think this may be the last update on it. The grant was for approximately $850,000, and the district had a requirement of approximately $150,000 in matching for a total project of right around $1 million. We're seeing significant energy savings already at that school over the last 6 months since we started the project. And the matching funds were provided from the 22 levy, project number 2207, House Bill 1257, also known as the Clean Building Standards. And we continue to go look for grant opportunities and apply for those opportunities that as they become available and match what we are looking for. High school update. We're looking to start site work April 1st. The start of the site work is dependent upon the issuance of site work 1, which between the time this update was completed now, we have received that today. So we've got a pre-construction meeting with the city and the contractor on Monday, and after that we'll be able to start. And we're still on an expected opening date of August of 27. I know Comms is working on the groundbreaking ceremony, and it's later April. And future updates will be more construction related. We're going to kind of change it up a little bit. We'll have some pictures and stuff like that for us to look at, and it'll be actual construction progress. And then a recap of the February 11th Capital Projects Oversight Committee meeting. That one was dedicated mainly to the design build team in the new high school. Presented information about a recap of the design build process, how the estimates were arrived at, and an overview of the actual project estimate, which we had at the time, and did a construction market update as well. The information was relayed to the committee members, and there were lots of questions and comments and good interaction with the committee. And our next Capital Projects Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled for May 12th. Any questions?
Dr. Coyne.
I had a couple questions. Thank you for the presentation. I guess one comment, one question. Thank you for the update on the roof repairs. Those make a big difference, I think, on our schools, particularly the Discovery, Endeavor, Cougar Mountain, that vintage of school. Those schools are kind of all roof.
Yep.
It seems like very, very visible. So thank you for that. That's, I think, a plus for the community to hear that. And then on the last slide on the Capital Projects Oversight Committee, what does participation look like in terms of numbers of folks that have attended that are on? Because I guess remind me again the number of folks that are on the committee, and then I guess what does it look like?
We have 26 members, and we have anywhere from 14 to 18 show up on any given night.
Okay.
We are always pushing for more reminders, trying to make the meetings as engaging as possible.
Yeah.
The high school was a good engaging meeting, although it was a low attendance. Although there was kind of we had to reschedule that meeting, so it wasn't on everybody's calendars as early as it could have been. So we're hoping for more for the May 12th meeting.
Well, it looks like an engaging agenda.
Oh,
It
yeah,
has been in the
very.
past. So
Yeah.
that definitely, I'm sure, attracts people on. And then remind me too, is there a term on that position? So folks that are on it that maybe aren't showing up, is there a way for them to be swapped out?
I think we were talking about a 2-year term and then kind of revisit and kind of re-engage and say, how many want to continue to to be a part of this.
Yep.
If you don't, it's all right.
Sure.
And we'll look to recruit additional members at that time.
Okay, because again, I want to elevate this because this was significant feedback we received from the community on setting up the Capital Projects Oversight Committee. Hats off to the district for doing this. We just want to make sure people attend.
Yes,
So they've shown they had
absolutely.
interest. And then maybe for some of those folks, I think the idea of having folks roll off after 2 years, but I think too, giving folks an out, if you've signed up and you
Yep.
can't do it anymore, giving up that spot to someone else who'd really have interest because this is really important to be
Absolutely.
there. So yeah, thank you.
As a reminder, those are also open to anyone to also attend. So
reminder,
we
yeah.
publicize them and have them on our calendar, so they're open to the public
Yep.
as well.
Any other questions, comments? Director Anderson?
Just a comment. Thank you for the presentation and a thank you to the superintendent and team for the focus on Maple Hills. For those who don't know, there was water damage that occurred Monday night, making a kindergarten class completely inhabitable. So appreciate whatever we can do to help work them into the schedule and get them moved up.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Director Gallinger?
Following up on that, are there any remaining funds from the 2022 levy that we could appropriate to a Maple Hills roof project, number one? And then two, what about our school board reserve for this? Because getting started on that work seems like the sooner the better.
There's approximately $600,000 left in the roofing portion of the 22 levy. That project's about a $3.5 million re-roof project. So it's kind of tough we don't have enough funds in the 22 levy to do that work.
Thank you. And then as you prepare for the vestibule projects and Maple Hills, it'd be great if you guys had some sort of signage that showed a very large sign, like the notice of blank signs that you see on by Providence Point that is thank you to our voters
Okay.
for approving this project for building safety, school safety, student safety, whatever. But I think we need to continue to braid together our good work with communication. And that's a highly visible site that you will have thousands of parents coming into the building for curriculum night, even if the project hasn't started yet.
Yep.
But these are moments where people are there that we'd like to see and show like, hey, this is going to be what's happening because of your votes.
Perfect.
I just want to for Maple Hills in particular, we have patched the roof this week. We do have maintenance funds and an open PO to make sure that we address anything as it arises. I know it's not it's not the long-term fix, but we are actively doing all we can to buy us the amount of time to get us to that full roof replacement.
Director Mullings?
For the Capital Projects Oversight Committee, is there either, I guess, feedback or summaries from those? And if I should already have that, let me know. But I do have I have an interest in knowing like the tone and tenor of those conversations, the questions that come out of it.
We have the presentations up on the on the district website.
Yeah, I've seen.
I don't think we have
I've seen
any, we don't,
what we presented out, but not like what is the common questions or what information are people more interested in? Like, I'm trying to get a sense of what were they hoping to know? Like, I know when they got started, a lot of it was baseline information, like how does it all work? How do you see the data? And with new high school is really like the first meteor one that they're getting to dig into. So I was just curious as like, what is the conversation?
Yeah. And as I indicated in here, there was a lot of questions and we left plenty of time for questions and we had a team there that could answer almost anything. And it was everything from cost per square foot, all about construction. And it ventured in, there was programming questions that we weren't able to answer at the time, but it was a wide range. and very little, if any, negativity. It was a very positive conversation. It really was. So,
So really at this point, it's still just about like, what are the details
Yep.
of that project? Okay.
yep.
Okay, thanks.
I'll add that there was a lot of forming, as you said, baseline education and getting up and running. And we've tried to sort of give some tone and tenor. I think that's helpful to hear, from Tom right now, the tone and tenor of the last meeting types of questions. And we can certainly, as part of our regular capital projects update, to do more of that in advance, and prepare that as part of our summary for where we are, especially for the May 12th meeting. I will say that I'm grateful that the levies for capital passed, because now we can actually have a lot more content to talk about. So as we move through time, I mean, it's not just the high school, but there's all these other critical repairs that are part of the capital levy. And so what I appreciate is that this structure is now set up. The baseline has been founded and formed, and that we can now launch into as we move towards both prioritization and progress of the work, and being able to talk about any market trends or things that pop up that make us have to have different choices. We can then engage that committee on what we're seeing and how we might handle those questions as they arise. So it's set up and ready to go, and grateful that we now have the funding to be able to tackle a lot of these big projects.
Director Mullings.
So the other thing, just back to the complexity of all this, like, it is really interesting when we talk about like even the name of these levies, right? So 2026 levy, but money's coming in 2027. And then when we talk about 2022, we're still talking about projects that we're doing. And so I think it is important to kind of restate that these levies are structured in a way that they're paying for critical repairs and maintenance over the course of a number of years. And so it is our expectation that there's dollars remaining when we get to these later years to actually do stuff that breaks. I think sometimes people are like, why are they still doing stuff? I'll use that as my quotey
Yep.
fingers. Why are they still doing stuff from 2022? And it's like, because that's the point.
Yep.
The point is we need to get the money so it covers us across all the way from 22 or 23 to 27 until the next one kicks in. So I don't know if that's something like explain a little bit more, but I just think when people see the year, it feels like, why does it take them so long? And so maybe just explaining a little bit about what critical repairs is actually doing over the course of the number of years would be helpful.
Yeah, and one of the key points is it was voted on, for example, 26, and it covers years 27, 28, 29, and 30, and collections happen each of those 4 years. We don't get the money like a bond or the bulk of the money up front. It's spread out over those 4 years. So, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's an important point. I'm just going to reiterate it, is that it comes in a couple times a year when taxes are collected too. So it's not that we get all of it up at front and then we spend it over 4 years. So a lot of timing involved, a lot of when are we going to do the things? Do we have enough for the big project right now? That kind of stuff. So that's a bit of the balancing. And then our executive director of communication reminded me, we have started putting summaries up on the website for the capital projects oversight committee. So that might answer some of the questions, and we can always elaborate on those as we go forward too. So if it doesn't, hit the mark now, we can improve. Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the presentation. Moving along. We will now move to monitoring report for results 3, civic engagement. May I have a motion?
I move the board accept the monitoring report for results 3, civic engagement, R3 as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, I think we will have a presentation now from the administration.
Great. Well, we'll have Dr. Downey and Richard Mellish join us up here for some framing. As always, the report has been posted, and I know that the board reads our very long reports, quite in depth. So we'll just do some light framing and then open up to board discussion and questions.
Thank you. Good evening, directors of the board, Superintendent Tauyik, Jacqueline Downey, Assistant Superintendent, Schools and Academics. Results 3 focuses on developing student skills, dispositions, and sense of responsibility to live as engaged community members. Civic engagement is complex and not easily measured by a single outcome. This report draws on curriculum evidence, student experiences, and perception data to measure results 3. In the 2024-25 school year, students consistently reported strong outcomes related to respect, ethical decision-making, and considering multiple perspectives. For example, 94% of high school students and 86% of seventh graders reported they are willing to consider others' opinions while making their own decisions. The vast majority of students across elementary, middle, and high school say they act respectfully toward people with ideas that are different from their own. These results align with what we see in practice through social studies instruction, social emotional learning, and co-curricular experiences, such as leadership, service clubs, and student representation on the board. The report also identifies important areas for growth. Students' sense of agency and impact are more variable. For example, 57% of seventh graders, with a significant number of students also selecting neutral responses, indicate that they feel they have agency and impact in their community. In addition, secondary students and staff report that standalone SEL lessons are not always experienced as relevant, reinforcing the need for deeper integration into meaningful core instruction. In response, focused work is underway. We are integrating SEL standards directly into coursework, continuing inquiry-based and culturally responsive social studies adoptions, strengthening positive behavior, intervention and support, and MTSS systems. Together, these efforts are designed to deepen relevance, strengthen student agency, and improve how we measure progress over time. Taken together, Results 3 shows we have strong foundations in place to support the development of our students as they become collaborative, ethical, and confident adults, as described in our Portrait of a Graduate. It also challenges us to keep learning alongside them to provide the most relevant and empowering learning experiences possible for our young people. We are proud of this work and remain committed to refining our system so every student continues to grow as an engaged and valued community member. Executive Director Rich Mellish and I look forward to your questions and discussion.
Thank you. We'll now see if we have any public comment on this topic. Anyone online? No one in the room? Okay. I'll open it up to board comments and questions. Director Cohen.
Well, thank you. I thought the report, as always, was very thorough. Lots of good information to go through. I was reflecting on a couple of things. One, recently participating in the senior exit interviews at Liberty, which I know a few of us here, or actually all four of us were part of, including Director Gellinger. And the question around bias and how do you determine facts, which is a question I always ask students that. And I was looking at section 3.3, and I think it's page 6, where the report says how the district, in terms of just curriculum, uses a process, the culture responsive equity framework for adopting curriculum to ensure, or at least to try to mitigate any bias that potentially could be in the curriculum. Got me thinking a bit around how we're equipping students with that. And I know that there were a couple areas. There's the when it's social curriculum. I don't know, it didn't speak to how it would help students kind of maneuver through bias, but I'm wondering, are there specific calls outs for how that maybe is being looked at or how that's being taught to students?
You know, it's funny because right before we came into the board meeting, we were in the room with our student representatives and just talking about kind of the changes that are happening in our social studies curriculum. And I'm kind of excited about some of the new course development that we're doing and just some fundamental shifts. And when you look at that college and the C3 framework that's mentioned in there that guides curriculum development, it approaches the professional practices a little bit differently. So for example, I have it up here. Dimension 1 of that C3 framework is developing questions and planning inquiry. So that's teaching students to develop questions and plan inquiry. The dimension 3 is about gathering and evaluating resources and developing claims using evidence. And dimension 4 is communicating and critiquing conclusions. So we've really built that into the core structure that we're doing to design these new courses. And as a result of that, and it's always built around compelling questions. And so I just have a few examples here. Our previous generation of social studies classes just pulled literally out of the standards. And with the C3 framework, our new courses, you'd expect this out of global studies. But when we look at global studies, the essential learnings are actually the compelling questions that they are going to study in that course. So for example, not surprising for global studies, questions like what circumstances have created a world where genocides and human rights abuses continue to happen? So that's the learning, is to do inquiry around that and get multiple sources and look at that from a critical lens. What's probably more exciting to me is a class that is less, not always as accessible to students as world history. Some students may love world history, I heard, and some students were like, yeah, world history, old things that happened. But I look at the questions in the new design of world history, and I look at things like, how do people use nationalism as a form of resistance to imperialism? How does new technology inspire change? Okay, that's ancient medieval history. How does new technology? So they're really trying to pull those questions up to the present and really look at multiple points of view and get them to look at those different points of view critically. So really, I know that's probably more than you wanted to hear,
No, that's
but it is
helpful,
about teaching students how to look at bias and look at different points of view.
I think that's very helpful. I guess then another question on that is then, I guess, where are students directed to obtain factual evidence?
Yeah.
Too. I guess that's another part of the concern too with that.
Absolutely. That is, I think if you talk to any of our social studies teachers and probably our ELA teachers as well nowadays, that is a really big, important thing that they're aware of and are looking at that. So when they're looking at multiple points of view, we're having them do their own research, and they're definitely integrating in multiple of our courses. How do you figure out whether what you're looking at is reliable, valid, true, false? Because we know that kids are inundated with lots of unreliable sources of information.
And does that include kind of the AI overlay too, in terms of being able to?
Yes, I think just about every conversation I have with a teacher, one of the first things they're doing is saying, how do we evaluate where AI is getting its information, whether that information is valid, and how do we figure out where its mistakes are? Because I think they were basically teaching students that you can assume that they're going to find mistakes. So how do you find them?
Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Director Anderson.
So I'm the data person. I'm looking at numbers. Page 4, I'm seeing the secondary numbers, and even 9 through 11 and 21, 22 and 23, 24 being really low. Do we have reasons as to why we were only in the hundreds for those years?
For numbers of respondents?
Yeah.
I know at least in the 23-24 school year, it was a miss. And so you can see in the 24-25 school year, a real significant jump in participation. So it was strategic, the approach to having students take these surveys. So there was follow-up, and it was real regimented.
We did hear that year there was a lot of survey fatigue as well. So we have had to note continually in our monitoring reports, because we do come back to these different surveys in different reports, that the data from this year might not be as reliable on a year-to-year basis compared to the other years, given the low numbers of responses.
Yeah, it's just, it's hard to see how we're doing when we're reliant on data, and data is not very strong. So, and then I have another question, and this can be answered by the superintendent or the board, because I'm coming in so late with the portrait of a graduate. How does that alignment make student civic and community skills more visible and measurable? Because I see that mentioned in the report, but I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how that's part of the reporting.
Well, first, I'll take a first comment here, and then I'd be curious to hear also board thoughts and Dr. Downey's and Rich Malish's thoughts. The portrait of graduate does quite nicely overlay actually with the results overall. And I know that we have a future board retreat to talk about what those implications might be, as we think about both the portrait, but also the governance model and policies from the board itself as part of the coherent governance process. And right now, what we are determining is that as we look going forward, where is that overlay? How are we taking that into account in our strategic plan? And how are we taking that into account with any future discussions the board might have around tweaks to policy and how that can be further connected? We also did commit to our staff to constantly think about where are we looking, where we already see evidence, where these aspects of skills are being developed currently throughout the entire system. And so as we even reflected on Rich Mellish's comments about the depth and the different criteria and domains in the curricula for addressing world history and then other social studies courses, you could hear in there that interpreting information and data, portrait of a graduate durable skill really come through. So there's lots of ways that it's already happening. And then the measurement of portrait of grad, I think that's a really good question. The question is, do we actually measure, or is it actually that we're looking for evidence? Because a lot of the durable skills are really about linking to mastery, right, and competency-based learning as well. And there's a lot out there now that's being developed, especially by organizations that have leading outsized voice in this area, to think about progressions of skills and how those might get overlaid with standards as well. So there's a lot to figure out. You ask a great question. And I know that some work is out there, and we're going to start leading on that. Actually, that was one of the benefits of inviting people to our school district from other districts across the country, as we found out there is some good work happening on where there have been further more advanced for years in looking at a profile of graduate or a profile of a learner. And so we've been able to be connected with those people and how they're thinking about it a couple of years down the road. Dr. Downey or Mr. Mellish, anything you'd want to add?
I just agree. I think we adopted the portrait in November. And so now as we're looking back on the work over the last year, we can draw those connections, as the superintendent said, and see some highlights. And now we can think about, with our strategic plan refresh, where there are opportunities to dig further into the portrait and develop strategies that really pull out parts of the results where we see the portrait as well. But it is certainly continued work.
And I would just say that the bringing that into the report is part of our commitment to kind of start pulling the thread of past years into present work. So it's not really that we see that as evidence of last year's work. It's more of, hey, this work is continuing to develop into this year. And you're right, we have a ways to go on that.
Dr. Gallinger?
Thank you for this. I think that I appreciate these conversations because when we think about the whole child, these parts are just as much and important as the academics, because I know we talk about academics all the time. So if you would go to the bottom of page 8, and so 3.5, which is students will understand appropriate, considerate, responsible, and it's gone. And ethical use and impact of misuse of technology, including artificial intelligence and social media. So this section is one that I'm always interested in. And if you would go to the top of page 9, I think a year ago, I wondered, has the district yet done a sort of guiding principles or best practices or policy, whatever word we want to use, for our staff? Because the interpretation of this isn't, if you use AI, that's misuse. But I think still in many of our classrooms, that's essentially what's being projected. So rapid change is happening quickly in this front. Do we have guiding principles or something for our secondary staff in particular? Because I still see widely variable of like, AI is bad, to then, oh yeah, you should use AI to help you with this project. So that range makes me wonder, what are our teachers really being directed from the highest levels of our district?
Yeah, we have developed, our ed tech team has developed some guides to good uses for AI for staff particularly, and have been continuing to build that out. They've done some work groups, especially around some of the humanities courses where there were some particular concerns, to really come up with some, like, here's how you can use it and not be afraid to use it because of, cheating or things like that. So yes, some guides have been used. And this year we've been making particular progress in training around the use of our adopted platform of colleague AI and training. So we have now trained all staff on the beginning uses of AI as of this year. That didn't happen last year, but we did have some last year, some promoted uses of AI in the classroom available even last year. We're now moving into the projects of uses of colleague AI for the student facing side in the secondary. And so we're just doing some pilots on that. So we've been making some steady progress in that area. But it's dynamic and emerging, but we absolutely are. And we did do a full half-day training with all secondary staff in January, really showing how important it is for us to lean into that conversation of AI, just as part of career prep and preparing students for the world outside of school. So we are certainly getting that message out there. And I would say that there is still a lot of variability of comfort with AI, not just the use of AI, but the ethics and challenges that people have with AI. There's a lot of different opinions among our community and our teachers.
Which is why all the more important that there is centralized, I think, guiding principles about that. So if you had them in place for the last school year, I think
I would have to look at what the publishing, when we publish that is, but we could get we could get some copies of the documents to you and follow up to this meeting if you would like of that we've put out there to teachers.
Yes. So if it was from last year, I would love for it to be linked into this report. And then if it's from this year, then I would love it for to highlight sort of like, oh, here's where we're headed.
I will confirm. I'm looking at
Jason.
I think both of us will try to confirm whether that came out last year or this year. I think that we had a version last year, but I don't want to swear to that.
I thought there was by late spring.
Yeah.
And so I guess I would like it to be able, that way we can kind of watch it evolve over time. Is why I would like to be here, is because I think we're going to see rapid evolution of it over the next several years. And that's why I would like to memorialize what last year's were. Otherwise, if it's not in this report, we can't go back and look and see what the district, like where they were, and then to query that. Because I often go back and look at like past year's data or past year's like links to see about that. So, thank you.
Milo.
I was thinking about what Harlan was saying, and I was thinking about my teachers and how they are all very, very split on the AI usage, where definitely we have some teachers who are like, yep, let's use AI. We've actually got a class right now that students are signing up for, which is how to use AI in your schoolwork. And then we have a teacher who would never be caught dead letting her students use AI. And I think that's there's an interesting split there. And then I do have some questions and comments on page 14. I know we were talking about in your like original reflection was that we had some growth in the 4th grade soft skills survey about believing that students, that they can make a difference in their community. And it seems like that number, although I do appreciate the inclusion of neutral, it does seem that neutral and the strongly agree, it just seems a little low. And I know we touched on that, and I would just be interested in knowing what we've done with that data now that we have seen those numbers, and what we're doing to try and encourage our younger elementary students to believe that they can make a difference, because they totally can. And I know just last Friday, our Kids Connect students went and worked with the elementary students to teach them lessons about salmon and kokanee education with Trout Unlimited. I think AJ touched on that a little bit ago. But I think at the end of that, most of them were 4th and 5th graders. I think at the end of that, they were very inspired and encouraged. And definitely, I think if we had asked them that question, they would have said that they believe that they could make a difference in their community. And so just wondering what kinds of things we're doing or are thinking of doing to encourage that, just because, I don't know, our youngest believers are still really important to our community.
Thank you, Milo. And I appreciate your passion for this. We had a fun dialogue last morning about this as well. So I think when looking at the elementary data, you see the percent neutral. It was added to the survey. So that's why we keep it in there. So you can see, yes, there is a dip and strongly agree. And some of that went to neutral, which didn't exist as a category before. I agree with you. It is still lower than we want it to be. One example of civic engagement, or I say students feeling empowered to make an impact in their community at the elementary level, is with our benchmark curriculum. So that is our literacy curriculum that was recently adopted. And it was a couple months ago, I was visiting some elementary schools, and across every grade level, the unit was a focus on my community and who are the helpers in our community and what kind of impact we can have in our community, whether that's through community service or government or different roles that people play and occupations. So that was one example I had regarding that.
I really like it. Yes, what we're thinking about now, I'm thinking about having Gibson X students come to all of our elementaries. So no, I do think that there's something. So we do have, like, we have a social studies unit on Me and My Community. We have these benchmark units. I'm kind of curious because we changed the way our student clubs work, which allows students to create clubs. I think you touch on a really important point, is that we could tell them as adults that you can make a difference in your community, but how do we get students to really believe that? Because here I am, I'm fourth grade, not 4 years old, fourth grade. And, you know, I'm in this world of adults, and how can I say I'm going to impact my community? And I'd love for our students to leave our elementary saying, oh yeah, I am totally convinced that I'm going to make a difference in my community. I do think actually that when older students say it, it actually has a really huge impact. So thank you for doing that work.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I definitely, I think that's wonderful. And I just love when our high school students interact with our younger students. I think that's one of the best, if not the best ways to not only confirm the older students' mastery, but also include the younger students. I remember when I was in elementary, I think the biggest way that I felt involved in my community was through helping the lower elementary students. So I do think we're still doing that, because where I work, I see a lot of the fourth graders and they talk about that. And then it was just a quick comment that a lot of these points that we require surveys and do some data for, like the understand and respect diverse cultures and whatnot. Gibson X does have quantitative data for that because of our dashboards. And so although it's not representative of the whole district and all of the high school experiences, you could still technically, if you're interested, use that, and it might help with some of the qualitative, actual numbers portion of it.
Thank you.
Any other? Director Mullins.
So we've actually talked about a couple about survey participation. The only thing I found interesting, maybe it's a question, but the portrait of a graduate work, I don't see any references going to the underlying website of the actual state, because there's work happening at the state level on the same topic, which I know was a bit of the baseline. And I think that might be helpful to add into the discussion, just because it's not like a thing we made up here, this portrait of a graduate, that there's actually work happening at a state level that we are adopting, adding to, whatever the right word is. And so I think we may be missing a bit of the plot for people on where did this even come from? Like, what is it based in? So I would just say there's probably a bit to add on, like, what is the foundation of this work and where did it come from, might be helpful in that conversation. Just as I was looking at it, I was like, well, I know how we started, but I don't think anybody else knows why this is here and where the work comes from. So that's just one I think we could help with a little bit more history and storytelling on the portrait of a graduate.
Guess what? I've got a portrait of a graduate question. No, I just noticed later I think the latter part of the report, there was a discussion about the exit interviews being realigned to the portrait of a graduate. I'm cognizant if we just did this in November, but I'm just curious if you could tell me how or what the thinking is there, or how that's being realigned.
Why don't you
Well, As Director Coyne said, 4 of us just recently experienced the 5 new questions aligned to Portrait of a Graduate. So the new questions, which were first used at Liberty, they were the first school to go this spring. The first question was for students to tell us about yourself, kind of that typical first interview question. And then next were 5 questions that the interviewer could select from, and each of them were a version of the durable skills in each of the 5 areas of the Portrait of a Graduate. So for instance, tell me about a time you set goals and achieved something. Talking about student agency. Tell me about a time that you collaborated with a group of people to accomplish a goal. So examples like that were what students spoke to.
Great, thank you.
I'll add that we were already underway in relooking at the exit interview process, as well as the value of that experience as a really authentic time for young people to really practice being in front of another adult in a professional way that helps them reflect on their experience, but also helps them project into what it might look like to show up in an interview as well. So that was already underway. So it was, I think, easy for us to sort of make a bit of a pivot to also start to link that automatically with the Portrait of a Graduate.
Any other comments? Yes, go ahead, Lai.
Much. I just had a quick thing on page 15 and just in a couple of other spots too, between the 5th grade exit survey and the 7th grade student survey, since both surveys talked about community and kind of student impact on community. I was wondering if it was kind of looked into on why the percent that strongly agree dropped so much in that kind of transition from elementary to middle school.
That's a great question. I think it's something we should look into further to find out more. I do think it aligns in general with some of the other student surveys we see in middle school. A little bit of a dip in satisfaction is a big transition time, right, in students' lives. But I would love to talk with our students and find out more. We'll do that.
Developmentally, kids are right in the middle too, in 7th grade. So there's a lot going on developmentally there. So that's just, I think it's a helpful frame to think about the change and how we can think about developmentally what would be helpful. I do think that we've seen some strong evidence with the micro school work where students feel incredible agency because they're taking a question, like how does sustainability work in the Puget Sound, right? And so that's a really powerful way for young people at Maywood to be able to engage in a local based question that's about sustainability. The same thing is true at Pine Lake. There's very specific local type questions on sustainability. So I think that there are new things that we could actually draw connections to that are this year when we do next year's report. But that's a really great observation.
Yes, Milo.
Sorry. Is there a possibility for next year for us to separate out the traditional middle school responses to the survey with the micro school responses? Because I would be really interested to see if the number of 7th grade students that believe they have an impact on their community is a higher percent, because that could also prove that our micro schools are working the way that we want them to. So if that's a possibility, that would be amazing.
It's a great question on evaluation, right? Is the support we're putting in place, this opportunity making an impact? Certainly, we want to maintain some consistency with this survey so we can look at data over time. However, absolutely, we want to survey and talk with our students who are experiencing our micro schools and be able to see that comparison in data.
And a great question on methodology and evaluation as Dr. Downey brings forward. One thing for this year, if we were to survey, I think we'd have a very small N size, so it's hard to compare. And I do think the qualitative aspect, and this is back to measurement, but linking back to Director Anderson's question too, like how do you measure experiences? And I think it's very powerful to think through oftentimes the qualitative components and that kind of feedback. You can never replace the words someone uses about what they have learned, how that has furthered their passion or expanded their interest areas. So we want to always balance that as well. But it's a good question to bring forward. What's the methodology to learn more about the micro school? And I did bring that up, so thank you for building on that.
Okay. Hearing no more comment, I think we have a motion to accept the monitoring report for results 3, civic engagement. What was it? Do we have a student vote? Yeah, sorry about that. We will have a student advisory vote at this time. Excuse me. One more. Oh, still need one more? Yeah, no? Okay. Well, we have 5 in favor. 6 in favor. Okay, there we go. Okay, thank you very much. That's great. Now, we have a motion to accept the monitoring report for results 3, civic engagement as presented. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And no opposed, so the motion carries. Thank you very much. Oh, they're gone. Thank you for that presentation. That was really, really great. Next up on the agenda is a strategic plan update about Priority Area 1, student well-being, and Priority Area 2, academic opportunities. And I will turn it over to the administration.
Great. As Mr. Marcel Hazard joins us at the podium, as well as Dr. Carver and Mr. Mellish and Dr. Downey, I do want to say this is the beginning of our updates about where we are currently. I know in my works in progress, I talked about what we're doing to prepare for the next round of our strategic planning. This is year 3 of our first strategic plan. As again, it's part of our implementation assessment answer to one of the results, which is the mission, and that we'll be monitoring that in June. And we're combining priority areas 1 and 2, and that's similar to how we did it last year. So you'll hear another couple updates in the next board meetings as well about the other priority or areas. So that's just some context and framing of where we are in time.
Thank you, Superintendent. Marcel Hauser, Senior Advisor in Strategy. Good evening, board. Good evening, community. The thousands watching on YouTube somewhere. I was like that. I'm hopefully thinking that, Matt. I was channel you with that. Moving into, so purpose today, and thank you, Superintendent, for framing it. This is all about year 3 implementation. So there's 2 tracks running simultaneously right now. We have our year 3 of our current plan, which we'll go into and kind of share highlights. We also are going through a refresh. So today, primarily, we're going to focus on year 3 of our 2022-2023 strategic plan. So we're going to stay in the present, but promise more to come in the future on the refresh. So we love to start with the vision and mission and goals because one interesting tidbit, we've been going through the schools and talking about our mission, our vision, and collecting feedback on the plan. And I always like to start with, do you know what the results are? And very interesting, like, most schools, it's not telling anybody, they're like, what are the results? And it's interesting because I'm like, yeah, they live in the boardroom, but these are our goals. These are what govern our work. So it's really our foundational piece. So want to make sure we always say that publicly, like these are the goals that we have for students, and these guide our work as we move forward. So anchoring in that, we think about the how. The strategic plan really lives as the sort of vehicle to move that work forward, to accomplish the vision, to accomplish those goals. You've seen the pyramid. We've shared this publicly before. That middle section really is the heart of it. That's just the strategic plan work. So our priority areas, our goals, our metrics, our strategies. So that's the anchor in the work that kind of pushes towards those higher level goals. The journey really started in 2022 and 23. So thank you, board, was a part of this process to think about what our priorities should be, what taking on the feedback and the themes that we heard. We were able to come up with a plan that encompassed the 5 areas, but also 18 strategies. So thinking back to year 1, we had results 1, which was our first time measuring the strategic plan via the mission. Year 2, we started thinking about our SIP plans and our templates. So thank you to Rich and team. We started to modify those SIP plans directly. So you could not fill out that SIP plan without seeing a direct alignment to the strategic plan. So that was systems level work that happened. And then as we go into year 3, we just talked about Portrait of a Graduate. That was a big piece in changing our system. So that is a part of this work. And then again, we are now moving into refresh, phase of what are the new strategies? What is community telling us? And what did we learn from this first 3 years of the plan? Last little bit of framing. So we shared about the system health indicators. These are the same indicators that we worked on collectively. So board viewed and really okayed as these are the high level indicators that we feel let us know whether we're going in the right direction or not. So they're meant to be sort of higher level framing, but they're not to mean that we're excluding other data points. I always like to I tease Rich and the folks like results 2 has 1,000 data points. Like we are tracking a lot of data, but really the system health indicators, they're our attempt and our way of pulling things back up to the top and tracking things. Public can have access to, there's a public dashboard through Power BI that you can access and see the 3-year trend data. So we will come back in June and show like how we did. So starting from, 3 years ago to now, like to show some progress, and there has been some exciting progress. We'll highlight a little bit here. So, 4-year grad rates, we've shared this in other board meetings. We should celebrate, right? They're very high, very high. Highest, tied for highest in state. So I always want to round that to 99% at this point. It's like a hanging little, it's 99%. So we are super high in that area. We also know, and we highlight, so we're making progress. So students with disability, our BIPAC community. So we are really putting in hard work and really growing and closing gaps. But we also know, I always like to be honest, like there's other areas we know we have to continue to improve. So you can see the 3rd grade reading. There's some flat data with our Black, Indigenous, and people of color. So our student data there. So, and again, the team here is not going to stop until, those gaps are closed. So with that framing, I have a dream team behind me to start. So we're going to share some highlights. So Dr. Carver is going to come up and share some good works, things happening in student well-being, and then Rich will follow and we'll talk next steps.
All right, thank you, Marcel, and good evening, Superintendent, Board of Directors, student representatives. We're excited to talk about student well-being, and I'm actually very excited about some of the connections between results 3 that we just talked about. So hopefully we can make some meaningful connections. As Marcel shared, we've been working over the last 3 years, really focusing and targeting in strategic areas. And so I'm going to talk specifically about student well-being and our 2 main goal areas. So first and foremost, that students feel safe and have a sense of belonging in our schools across all of our learning sites. And students will have access to resources that support their basic needs, social, emotional, and behavior and mental health. When we think about this, I wanted to first and foremost highlight that this slide reflects what was previously shared with the board in June of 25, and Marcel referenced this as part of our Results 1 monitoring report. And at a high level, we learned that system-level infrastructure, participation equity across grade levels, and we've talked a lot about that tonight, about what does that look like, participation equity in our surveys and our engagement, and the shift to asset-based support models are areas that really require and continue to shape our well-being work. And that's the work that I'm going to share with you about this year. And I'm fighting a cold, so I'm going to just really quickly here. Dr. Downey offered, she's like, well, if you lose your voice, I can speak for you. So I'm going to try and muscle through here my couple slides. So one of the things that we really want to talk about in terms of this year is that we've been really building on those lessons. And I'm really pleased to share meaningful progress that we've made this year across Priority 1 system-wide. So the data on the slide shows that we've strengthened participation in our well-being surveys. And so we've talked a lot about that data in the rears, and that's one area that we continue to talk about. Yes, we have some survey fatigue, but we're really working on strengthening that. And now we're connecting those results to targeted multi-tiered systems of supports and interventions. So not just we're collecting data, but also that data is driving student supports and driving action at both the student and system level. On a programmatic side, we launched a strength-based collaborative pilot, and it is in direct response to our commitment to move away from deficit-based models across our system. Also, as mentioned in Results 3, we've completed a full integration of our Washington State's SEL standards into our high school coursework. Now, we know we need to continue to focus on SEL at the high school level, but that work is moving forward. We've also developed a high school SEL playbook, and we finalized a community resource hub that's available for students and families. We've also mapped out a K-12 student goal-setting pathway aligned to both the Portrait of a Graduate. So Director Anderson mentioned that piece. How does this connect to our work? So the Portrait of a Graduate connects there, and our high school and beyond plans. And this positions us well for sustained and systematic impact. I also want to bring and highlight some of this work to life and share some of our key spotlights for this year for this priority area. So this past August, we hosted our annual resource fair, and the turnout truly reflects the trust our families and our community is placing in the district. We served over 437 families, and this represents 870 students, and that includes distribution of school supplies. But beyond just school supplies for each and every one of those students, this event brought together sports physicals. So thank you, Dr. Gallinger. Health screenings, vaccinations, EVP support, and clothing closet services, all under one roof before the school year even began. This exemplifies whole child supports made accessible to students and families and community. The second spotlight is around Care Solace. And so we'd like to share that Care Solace is a care coordination service that's available for every student, every staff member, and every family in our district. It's available 24/7, and it's available in over 200 languages. And this year, the team expanded Care Solace to include social services coordination, which is broadening our reach significantly. Since July, the numbers speak for themselves with 80 referrals, 42 successful connections to care, and over 140 hours of staff time saved. That time then directly translates to our social workers and our counselors being able to directly support and serve students as opposed to navigating systems. I want to shout out to our Equity, Belonging, and Family Partnership team as they've worked in these two spotlight areas, along with the full student well-being priority area. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Rich Mellish, who will talk about Priority Area 2 and academics.
All right, thank you. So Area 2, academic opportunity centers on two goals, increasing student achievement of meaningful milestones and equitable access to resources and pathways. Last year we talked about some of the journey that we were on and some updates and things that we were learning along the way. This year, some of the areas I want to look at are some of the outcomes and also some of the systems that we're developing. So increases in reading foundational skills, we hit some targets. We saw some really nice gap closure in our students with disabilities. And I'm also excited about some of the other measures, formative measures that are showing acceleration when students are receiving interventions. And we're also seeing how cohorts are increasing their achievement in more measures as they go from third to fourth to fifth as well. So there's some nice parts there. We are still not done though, because we did see that flat line with the students of color that we're not seeing that accelerated growth there in that third grade measure. And we'd like to see we'd like to see that also reflected in overall measures of reading and ELA in third grade. So we're hitting more acceleration in fourth, fifth. We'd like to see that happen even earlier in third grade. So we're not done, and we have places to grow on that, but we're excited with some of the early returns on investment there. When we get into the next couple bullets, as we were developing our multi-tiered systems of support, one of the great things that's happening is de-siloing our intervention systems. So as teaching and learning service managed programs and special service managed programs coordinate, we're using success block and strategic scheduling to really make sure that we're getting that full continuum of support and being really responsive to students. And so we're getting more interventions earlier. So we are excited about those systems development that has come out of this strategy as well. I think I'll jump down to some of the data work too, and the just attention to gap closure. I think one of the things just anecdotally that I see is how many of our engagements with staff and meetings and collaborations and structures in our schools start with this commitment, recognized commitment to gap closure. And we start by looking at the data of these groups and saying, is there evidence that this effort is closing a gap, an important gap? And I think that attention is really making its way through our system at all levels. And so we're starting to see that in ways that we look at grades and ninth grade success and on track. We see that in our looking at, are we getting students to feel that sense of agency that they can choose advanced math if that's what they want, accelerated math if that's what they want. And then also looking at some of our support systems and saying, are these interventions serving all students? Is our tier 1 curriculum serving all students and getting all students to hit those markers of success? So I think that the strategic plan has raised a great awareness of the gap and made it more systemic. And then finally, some great work around the high school and beyond plan, and just really revising that and strengthening that and becoming more meaningfully connected to helping students choose their pathway through our schools to prepare for their career ambitions and their post-secondary opportunities. And that work is not done either, because there's more to come as we integrate the portrait of a graduate that we were just talking about into the high school beyond plan in very explicit ways. And as the state is investing in new resources and new scope and sequence for that work, I think we're going to see that high school and beyond plan become increasingly meaningful to our community as they go through, and our students as they plan their post-secondary goals. So the spotlight strategy, there's several things that I think we could be really proud of as a system out of this. But one of the things that we've already kind of mentioned earlier in this is how it starts to come together. And I think that seeing these strategies starting to reflect deeply in school improvement plans, for me, that's been one of the highlights of this work. It's the fact that we have a common dashboard. And not only do we have the school improvement plan dashboard, but we got related formative dashboards so that they can look at early indicators and leading indicators of each of those measures and be more responsive throughout the year. So I think that's something that has been a real highlight, is how we support the school improvement plan integration. And then also the fact that there's a great similarity in the school improvement plans, because we're creating systems and structures and scope and sequences of how do you do this work, but letting schools make it locally relevant and fit their needs and fit their strengths as a school. So as a result, our STAY survey recently showed some connections that more staff feel that the work they're doing at school, their school level efforts, are linked to the strategic efforts of the district. So that was kind of something that when we saw that, we're like, hey, that's a nice little piece of data to say it's starting to get throughout our system. And then we're just emerging and developing and deepening. We've been doing these continuous cycles of improvement where support teams have been looking at data regularly and asking ourselves, okay, what do we do? How do we get to these students? What do we do next? Now we're getting that down to the classroom team level. So on the January non-student day, we introduced a new protocol where we had to start teaching how we can, in a very common way, get all teachers involved in looking at the data and saying, who's thriving, who's not, and what can we do about it? And so getting those cycles of continuous improvement in our service to students. So that's where we've been growing and seeing how the systems in our district and our school improvement plan efforts interweave. And so that's the spotlight that I wanted to bring as we continue to grow in priority area 2.
Thank you, Rich. All right, next step. So just go quick. So we're continuing our school site visits throughout the month of April. We continue to go and collect feedback. Board retreats coming up, so we'll pivot toward the refresh and what the next 3 years can look like. Then we have a series of board meetings coming up to talk about this, continuing the updates on this current plan, but also the new plan coming up. So more conversations, strategic plan over and over and over and over again. So thank you for listening. We're open to questions and feedback.
Director Anderson.
So I mentioned this in January, but the Washington State School Director Association, or WASDA as we like to call it, started a new director connection meeting training sessions, and this is the first year that they're doing that, and I've loved being a part of that. And what's funny is on Friday, our training was mission, vision, and goals. And they asked straight out, like, do you know what they are? And I knew our vision and mission, because not only is it on our walls, but it's on our It's on our website. But I was a little fuzzy on the goals, and 4 hours later, this presentation came into my email. And so the timing was just perfect because I was able to get myself kind of up to speed on all of this. So thank you for all the hard work in this. I think there's wonderful things happening. One of the things mentioned in here was, the reading foundation skills as well as the multi-tiered systems of support. In the retreat that we had earlier this week, part 1 of 2, I shared that I've seen that at work with my son in first grade. He is in the reading or learning to read phase, and experienced wonderful proactive help in this to get him up to the reading level he needed to be. So a big thank you to the team for just even the start of all of this work, because I can personally say it's working and it's wonderful. So thank you for that.
Awesome feedback. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Milo.
So guys, I know I'm yapping a lot this meeting. Based on your priority area 1, and the lesson learned from year 2 implementation, I just wanted to highlight that we are making wonderful progress on that, specifically the understanding high school students' social emotional needs require different approaches than elementary students. And I'm sure maybe you guys know, but I'm sure you do. But we are revamping the high school, like the one that goes out to all high schools, the suicide prevention video. And that's partially student led, partially clinician led. So that's pretty cool. I just wanted to highlight that we are redoing that. Which was made in, I think, 2020 during COVID. And so we are redoing it to make it better and working with our service providers, the ones at Swedish Hospital and whatnot. So I think we're making some great strides on student mental health, specifically in the high school.
Thank you for bringing that awareness, Milo.
Dr. Mullings.
This may be my favorite presentation in a very long time.
Wow.
So,
Sydney.
Sydney,
do we get away? Do we get away?
And it's for many reasons. One of the things in my first, I'll say 3 years on the board, I was like, we track so many random data points and talk about them for a really long time. And what for me was really important, and I talked about a lot, and you don't have to hear it anymore, is like, what's the data that actually matters? What are the points of inflection along a student's time with us that we know matter to their go forward success, right? What are those key points? Do we know what they are? Can we measure them? And then if we know what they are and can measure them, what are we doing before that point to make sure that we change the trajectory of where students hit those different inflection points? And if we know what we're doing, then what are we doing around the multiple facets of what has to change for any given student, whether it's supports, whether it's, the the services before the start of school, right? For some students, that's about how do they show up at school, clothing, can they participate with sports physicals, all the various barriers or things that become barriers. How do we remove those? But it's also the academic identification and using the early indicators. It's about actually knowing which students are continuously finding barriers to graduation or barriers to the next level of achievement and disrupting those patterns. And then how do we know that we as a whole system are lining up together to interrupt those repeatable patterns? And that was really hard. I almost cursed. That was really hard my first few years. It was all this kind of random acts of work happening. But how do we know that they're being orchestrated in a way that can make substantive difference in the outcome for students? And so we've done some of our results monitoring. We absolutely can see it in the gap closure and in the graduation rates. But this presentation does is it pulls together all of the various types of programs, all the various types of supports, right? Because to get to that last bit of those kids that aren't being served, it's a lot of different stuff that has to happen at one time. And so I just am just deeply grateful and very proud of what this piece, I know it's just a piece of the strategic plan and the readout, but it is, it's just light years ahead of how we were thinking about students as whole beings and how they fit in within this community and what we can practically do that's different to make a real and substantive change in that trajectory. And it is just amazing to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Director Mullings. This is recorded, right? We're recording this coming. I'm saying we're gonna at the part.
Yeah. Director Goin.
Great, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I want to go to slide 13, and I kind of want to elevate Care Solace because I think it's pretty substantial when you look at the 140 plus hours of staff time that's saved through coordination with family and providers. And I know I'll be the first to admit, and others at home may be listening or wondering this too, but Care Solace, I hear about it, but I think there's a lot of specifics I don't know. And so I was just wondering if maybe someone could speak to it in a bit more detail in terms of what this looks like, and how students access it. I know the detail would be helpful for me and maybe others.
I will do a high level overview, but again, I want to call out and celebrate my colleagues in the Equity, Belonging and Family Partnership department. This is truly exemplifies their work and the work of the P1 area. But Care Solace is available, as I mentioned, to students, staff, family, community members. And so if you go to our website, you can hop right in and you're going to be able to see, you can access them through a website, you can access them directly through a phone number. It is a service that connects you to mental health resources in our community. That's one of the biggest barriers, is access to connected resources. So being able to navigate our medical and mental health community, finding a provider that aligns with your identity, finding a provider that speaks your language, all of those components. And so families can log in free of charge. They will help you connect and coordinate, and they navigate the system for you. So being able to say, that piece about the burden of trying to call multiple providers, they will reach out, connect you if you're looking for a very specific type of provider, loop back with you at times that are convenient for you. If you're working third shift, they can get back to you. If you need supports directly for your students' mental health, if you need services for your own family's mental health, maybe you're having, some support needs with your family and you need those, they're also available. It's a pretty dynamic opportunity to connect our community together and provide those resources very quickly.
That's great. Thank you. I mean, as you stated too, there's just so many barriers to care.
Yeah.
And to have someone coordinate all of that, to be able to
Yes.
find a local provider,
Yes.
to be able to maneuver through, hey, does this provider, are they covered by my insurance? All of the
Absolutely.
questions that people might just say, hey.
And even
it's too much.
navigating, insurance benefit,
Yeah.
who takes my benefits, sliding scale access, all of those things, they have the care providers support with that, the care coordinators support with that. And again, I highly encourage folks to hop on, look at the website and access those resources.
Is there a way, I guess, how is this promoted across the district, this service? How do people know it exists? How do we?
Yeah, that's a
How's that?
great question. So we do have access to it in multiple places across our website. I know our counselors are huge supporters. They're directly sharing this with students, sharing this with families, sharing this with staff members. Our social worker and well-being teams also are connecting students. I think it might be something, I'm looking over to our comms team, it might be something that we can also do some intentional pieces when we're reaching out in whether it's newsletters or other areas.
Yeah, I think there definitely would be an opportunity with that because I think particularly at our 3 comprehensive high schools that are so large and access to a school
Absolutely.
counselor is tough. And usually that's just for scheduling. So
Yeah.
these types of conversations are limited. So I think, if there's a way to be able to push this out as a resource, I think would be wonderful.
Yeah, mental health and well-being continues to be one of our top priorities and something that we continue to hear consistently from students, staff, families is, how do we support? And so we're looking at multiple avenues to support. So yeah, thank you for the
Great.
feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Bob.
Sorry, just adding on to that, anytime you email a school counselor, it's right under their name is the link and a little description of what the service is. So anytime, and it's also, I believe, on some just regular teachers' emails. And so the students definitely get visibility through that, just because you probably wouldn't see that.
Thank you, Milo.
Director Gallinger?
Yeah, I would just say to be more proactive would be great. So if we know peak stress is as leading in finals, I don't know if that's the peak stress, but I'm sure you guys all know when the peak stress is. Seems like that should be proactively sent through Canvas and through emails to our families of, hey, this resource is available. I think that just shows like timeliness of support, because when you start school, you're probably not thinking about this. So you want that just in time educational piece when you need it. And if we have the technological ability to schedule things, then we should just schedule it, because we know you guys know when peak stress is. So those would be great times. And I think that would help normalize, which I think is a huge part of student well-being, is we want it to be like, this is normal. It's normal to be stressed. It's also normal to seek help,
Yes.
to find balance.
Yes. And that also directly connects to our commitment in a proactive and preventative framework. Our multi-tiered systems of supports are intended to be proactive and preventative. So reaching out in advance and saying, hey, we have these things, please access these resources. So that's great feedback. Thank you.
I wanted to pivot to the academic opportunities one. And so on our website, it says goal 1 is to increase student achievement of meaningful milestones of 3rd grade reading, Algebra 1, and 9th grade on track to graduation, and decrease opportunity gaps. But Power BI only lists one of them. So I know in the dashboards for our SIP plans, you can find the data for the Algebra 1 and graduation on track. But it would be great just when you're on the Power BI website, and how if I'm at the top and I see the options are for the system health educator indicators, percent of 3rd grade graders scoring proficient in foundational literacy, and I could choose percent of students attending 90% or more of school days, and percent of students who graduate in 4 years or continuing. Seems like adding the other 2 would be helpful. If those are, to Sydney's point, if these are what we're trying to hone in on these are the measures that matter, we probably need to have them all in one stop shopping, so we can see them. And then it would be also helpful in this presentation, as well as on Power BI, if you would define what is the scoring proficient in foundational literacy. It doesn't define what foundational literacy is. So are you using iReady and using certain strands within iReady? So that would be helpful, versus I don't need someone to define to me what graduation in 4 years is. But the continuing might be. I don't know if everyone would know what that means. So I think adding those definitions to make it more just user friendly would be really helpful.
Yep. Thank you. Helpful feedback. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, okay. I would just add that the bullet point, I believe it was in section 2, but we don't have to go to it. That pointed out the increased understanding of people about improvement efforts, direct links to the strategic plan. That is just huge. I've done a lot of work in strategic planning in Microsoft over the years, and you come to these teams and everyone's doing all this work, and you can ask people, why they're doing the work. And they are hard pressed to tell you sometimes. So that really is a tell-all of the impact of the plan. And it's really about organizational empowerment. So really great work. And I just think that's a real reflection of the impact the plan is having. And I would hope to be able to emulate that in some of my own work later in my career. So really well done. Okay, well, hearing nothing else, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Oh, wait, Director Gallinger had one more thing. Sorry. I thought he was.
More comment. I just want to note for goal 2, students will have equitable access to resources and pathways that support individualized post-high school goals. I am grateful for groundbreaking that is going to happen next month, because it really is about this district and this board's commitment to deepening that opportunity for our students. and developing those pathways to support individualized plans. So I'm excited that I'm sure that will be a prominent part of the renewal of the strategic plan, but did want to call that out as those were things that I think we dreamed of that we're getting a little later start than we would have liked. But nonetheless, like we're starting and I see those dominoes falling and I see nothing but excitement on behalf of our community and our kids. So thank you for that.
Great. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the agenda is legislative matters. This is an opportunity to share legislative updates. Director Anderson, do we have anything to share?
I don't have any myself
the
with
low
the session close. Yeah, and we had the report about the impact
Yeah.
of legislation on the district. So I don't know if anyone else has anything.
I do not. Anything else from anyone?
Okay.
Okay. Next is announcements and correspondence. Do we have any correspondence we need to add to our report? No one has any correspondence? Moving right along. And then lastly here, calendar and future agenda topics. Let's see, high school graduation presentation of the graduating class is listed. What is the conversation we need to have there?
Oh, do you need to select who's speaking?
Are
at
we doing
each?
that selecting speak? Okay.
I think I'm out this year.
I would like to take on Issaquah if I could, and that we have a family friend graduating Issaquah High. Yeah.
Sorry, what are we talking about? I'm.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry,
wait,
Director Anderson. Yes. At the graduation ceremony, as part of each ceremony, there's an opportunity where one of the school board directors gives about a 1.5, 2 minute a speech and then presents the class.
Gotcha.
Yes. And there's a script for some of that and all that we can help you with, but that's what we're all signing up for.
Gotcha.
There's
Thank you.
4 ceremonies,
Yeah.
4 ceremonies, 5 directors. Director Mullins gets the bye this year. And the Gibson Eck ceremony is usually held at IHS in the theater there. It's a smaller ceremony, but really unique and great and cool. Beautiful. So that's an opportunity as well. So we'll have the 3 at T-Mobile and then the Gibson Eck ceremony as well.
Perfect.
The ACT graduation's listed there too. Do we have a speaker? for
We
that?
don't.
We don't speak it.
Oh,
we
okay,
don't
it's
speak
just
at that
listed.
one.
Okay, I didn't think
Yeah.
so. It's just on this list.
So I have signed up for IHS.
Unless someone else wants that one.
No one gets it. I'm taking it.
Yep. No, I was just like,
Presidential privilege. Wow.
I would like to sign up for Liberty.
Okay,
Awesome.
there we go.
I
And
think
question, should I be writing these down?
Sky.
Skyline for.
Yeah, you're Skyline this year.
Yeah.
Oh, he is Skyline.
That leaves you.
And I'll
Gibson.
do Gibson. Yeah.
Well, that was so easy.
Because we have
That
how
would be
many
some
years
bark-
in a row of graduating, board member, students graduating? We have like 5 years in a row. We'll do something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So you are Skyline this year. That's so exciting. Okay, so we're good on
we're good on
that
that.
assignment, and then we have one above. Should I go through this one?
Sure.
Am I the only one who got this sheet? No, we all got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a potential motion for a joint engagement with City of Issaquah.
That's right.
It looks like we're amending this one. Did we already pick a date?
We're just changing the time.
We're changing the time. Do we need to discuss this one, or was everyone comfortable with this time? I can make the motion and then we can discuss. So I move to amend the motion we passed on March 11. I wasn't on the call, that's why. March 11, 2026, to meet with the City of Issaquah leadership from 6 to 8 p.m. instead of 5 to 7 p.m. And the meeting will take place at the Issaquah Senior Center. In a second.
Nice second.
So just to know, I have dance at 8, so I will have to leave at 7:30, but I'm fine with the time change. I'll just have to hop out a little early.
Okay. I'll have to check my very busy schedule, but I believe I'm available.
I'm fine with that. I think I'm fine with it.
Yes, that works for me.
So I guess all
Absolutely.
those in favor, say aye.
Yep.
Aye.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, great.
Those are the only ones I saw.
Yeah, I think that's it, right? Okay. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, we are adjourned.
Great.